Hello, it's Jamie J. I am the CEO and founder of Bottleneck Virtual Assistants. And here we are live with Bottleneck. I'm so pumped today to have Jamie Mustard, author, brand architect. The man is amazing when it comes to telling stories, and he can bring these stories out of anybody. It's fantastic, and we're going to share some of those stories with you. So get ready to meet Jamie Mustard. We'll be back in about 38 seconds. 38 seconds. And go ahead and time me if you don't believe me. All right, we're back. 38 seconds as promised. Super excited to be introducing you today to Jamie Mustard. Jamie we're gonna be talking about how to stand out in a world so digitally overloaded that we as individuals and companies have become invisible. I don't know if you know that, know what I'm talking about, but I sure do. I totally get this because so much is going on. Now, Jamie Mustard is a strategic multimedia consultant, creative, art and design director, product futurist, and author of The Iconist, The Art and Science of Standing Out. And he has codified the primal laws of what makes anything iconic. Just that sentence there is pretty iconic. The anatomy of what causes any idea, art, or message to stand out and take hold in the human mind across any medium. And his passion is to teach the science and art of the obvious, or obviousness, as he calls it, helping professionals, change agents, artists, and businesses confidently and at will make their messages, brands, and ideas stand out to their desired audiences. A London School of Economics graduate, Jamie's work is an explanation of the economics of attention based on the primal laws of human perception called blocks. And we'll get into this. I thought this was very interesting, the way he uses blocks. Jamie's Iconist work has spanned some of the world's leading companies, Cisco, Intel, Adidas, Symantec, and TEDx at creative giant Wieden and Kennedy. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to the one and only Jamie Mustard. How are you, Jamie?
I'm really good. Wow, thank you for that incredible introduction. Thank you. Yeah, and I was digging I love the intro music, by the way.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
That all goes to we call him Magic Mike. he's our audio and video editor, and the guy is amazing. He's pretty cool. But thank you. I will definitely let him know if he's not already listening. A couple things real fast before we ask you to tell us a little bit more about you and about your background for any of my audience who does not know Jamie, which may be hard to believe, but incredible person. But if you have any questions or comments throughout our conversation today, please go ahead and ask away. Whether you're on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitter or Periscope, wherever you're at, go ahead and chime in with your questions. And then if we don't get your questions or get to them here on this, go ahead and put them in the comment section below, and I will forward them off to Jamie or make the introductions, whatever it is that Jamie can help you out with. So Jamie, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was limited to a 120-word bio, so I'll say a little bit more about me. So all those things that you said in the intro are my life and who I am. I guess what makes, what's not in the intro is just how low I started. And I think that makes the intro a little bit more interesting. I was a child by neglect. For all intents and purposes, for the first 7 years of my life, I had very limited contact with one of my parents, and I was in and out of kind of institutional environments. I wasn't in school a lot growing up, so I was semi-literate till the age of 19. So I had, I grew up mostly in abject poverty towards downtown Los Angeles in Hispanic neighborhoods. And then when I was 12, we moved to Eugene, Oregon, which I can't say could have been more of a culture shock. Okay, so that's what makes my life interesting on this subject of attention. And then I ended up going from being semi-literate to graduating from the London School of Economics. I mean, I had some help, but in about 5.5 years. So I've just lived in an incredible arc in terms of where I started and then the people that I interact with and the life that I have today.
Well, you and I was blessed. You and I had a chance to talk for a while. And by the way, Raina, who helped set this up, says, "Hey there, Jamie and Jamie."
I love it, Jamie and Jamie. I love it. I thought, I don't know that I've ever had a long conversation with another male Jamie. Yeah, and I thought it would be more awkward, but I actually don't mind it. I think it's fun.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, I was so blessed to. I mean, I think we talked 45 minutes or so, and your life is so interesting, and what you've done with it, and what has happened, the experiences that you've had in your life, you've been able to apply in so many different ways, and you're so thorough, as you said for your book, The Iconist. You didn't just write that book overnight and put it out there.
No, I was beta testing those ideas for 15 years. I probably started writing the book 10 years ago. Maybe a little longer. And then, but you learn while you go. It wasn't like I was sitting there writing for 10 years, but you figure out, and everything is obviously, the book came out in October to great critical acclaim, and it won some really cool awards. And it's you can get it at every Barnes and Noble, and everything's kind of accelerated since that book has come out, right? But yeah, what was the question again? How did you phrase it?
So when you didn't do this overnight, so I mean, I didn't really ask the question, but
I think that's a really great point. And there's 2 points. There's 2 reasons why that's such a great point. One is anything that is worth doing takes time. It's craft, right? So you have to beta test. I mean, I figured these primal laws of why things stand out across any medium. They're out. I figured them out 15 years ago. Right. But I was beta testing them in every, with artists, with with companies, with small businesses for, 10, 12 years as I was writing, curating stories that I think that I thought would, and statistics and research and historical examples that I thought would best communicate it to the widest range of people. Because of the way I grew up, even though I went to a really good school, I wanted it to be very accessible. So it's a unique book in that way. So that's point one, is just anything worth doing takes craft and time, and it's about the meaning and the dedication that you're willing to give to it. And then the other thing is the part about figuring things out, right? I went and, why should I be able to write a book like that in the category of people that I love, like Malcolm Gladwell or Dan Pink, or Michael Lewis is one of my heroes, Rich Karlgaard, the publisher of Forbes. I mean, these are brilliant writers. And part of it is I reverse engineered it. I went and read, looked at my favorite books, and I thought, okay, that's my standard. Malcolm Gladwell, Dan Pink. I'm not saying I hit it. I'm saying that was where I set the standard. Rich, okay. Right. And then what I did is I said, okay, what do I do that's different from them? What do I do that's uniquely me? What do I do that what can I do maybe better than them, right? Even though they're better, those guys might be better than me at most things. And so I held myself to that standard of storytelling, writing, and research, but also focused on my talents, my specific interests and abilities. So the point of that is that everything can be figured out if anybody can go look at something they want to do, look at the people that are in it that are successful, and work back what they did, and then constantly ask themselves, am I doing it to the standard of this person that I admire, or this person that's been very successful? And I believe that if you work hard and you do craft, and you hold yourself and you reverse engineer those standards, anybody can almost do anything if they're willing to stick with it long enough.
I couldn't agree more. But I think one of the things that I heard you say is when you looked at this stuff, is this something that, what made me stand out? These are all questions that you just mentioned that every single one of us should be asking. Because, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but for me, asking me these questions, asking myself these questions really helps to put me in an area that I enjoy being in, number one, and maybe an area that I'm really good at. And that may be how I find that niche.
Yeah, I mean, I think that even before you ask yourself the question about how to stand out, because a lot of what drove me for all those years was meaning. I came across what I thought was a pattern. There are lots of different things I wanted to do with my life. But I thought that this pattern was probably more important than anything else I would ever come. You're only as good as your intellectual property. And I thought it was a special thing that I came across and worth dedicating a tremendous amount of my life to. I think before you talk about the concept of standing out, you have to kind of look at the problem. And the problem is something that I coined in the book that I call dilution. And dilution is this issue of there being so much content overload now that that we all compete with all of that content and messaging for attention, making us diluted as individuals and companies, and making it impossible to get the traction that we could maybe get. If you were walking around in 1950s town in Nebraska and you were a butcher, maybe you were competing with 3 other butchers in town. And then if you walked around, you were maybe exposed to about 250 advertising messages a day. By 1970, that was 2,000 advertising messages a day. By 1998, the estimates were around 5,000 to 7,000 advertising messages a day. Thought experiments today probably put it about 10 to 15,000. You couldn't process 1,000. So that's dilution. People are exposed to more, so you become smaller. You become a smaller tree within that forest. Everyone is experiencing that, and they can feel it. And that what that comes from what's called from scarcity of attention. So the defining problem here, the problem that I'm solving, is this scarcity of attention problem that makes us all diluted and invisible. In 1998, a woman named Linda Stone. So the point, I'll back it up one more second. The point of the butcher thing in the Nebraska town in 1950 with 200 advertising messages a day, if you went out and lived your life and came home, compared to the 10 to 15,000 now digitally. Now that butcher doesn't just compete with the 3 butchers in his or her town. That butcher competes with every butcher that can ship overnight in the United States. That's dilution. Every single industry you're in all practicality, is dealing with this issue one way or the other. In 1998, a woman doing research for Microsoft and Apple named Linda Stone coined the term continuous partial attention to explain how we were all being distracted by so much content. We were only partially paying attention. This is in the burgeoning new days of the internet when we were just getting started. This is long before, this isn't anything close to the world we're living in now. So people weren't paying attention in 1998. There's lots of books that are written on the subject of how the internet is distracting us all the time. So the point of my work and the point of my book, the problem that I'm trying to solve, what I'm interested in when I say that scarcity of attention is the defining business problem and social problem of our time. That's very similar to what Bill Taylor, the founder of Fast Company, said when he endorsed my book. What I'm trying to say is if everyone around you is distracted all the time by this over messaging, rather than, what is that doing to the people that are trying to get attention? So people in their businesses, no matter the size, whether you're a multi-billion-dollar company and you're doing well and you think you could be doing better, or you're an entrepreneur just starting out, and everything in between, everyone is experiencing this thing, this concept that I would call drag. You're not able to get the attention that you feel that you deserve for something that you created that you think is great. And when you're talking about a business, you're not just talking about somebody's business. You're talking about their passion, their meaning, their mortgage, their kids' college. These things are huge to people. So when you can solve the problem of standing out, you create really a social change impact beyond just fixing a business and making a business flow and not bottleneck in terms of attention.
I love that. I think that's fantastic.
I hope I didn't go on too long there, Jamie.
Hey, I am having a blast with this. I'm writing notes like my keyboard is smoking at this point. It's fantastic. I absolutely love this because these are all things that every single one of us can identify with. This is all things that we've experienced at one time or the other, or probably experiencing right now. And one of the reasons I'm so glad you're here today is because of the current environment, economic. Health, everything that's going on with right now as of the time of this live event, we are kind of segmenting, not segmenting, but making our way through this coronavirus thing here. Everybody is, some people's worlds have been turned upside down. But as a good friend of mine, Christopher Lockhead, said, 10% of these people are going to come out better than where they were when they went in because of understanding and identifying what it is that you're talking about, because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know drag until you tell us what drag is.
Yeah.
You don't know scarcity of attention in the way that you share that with us. And now that we can put that in the front of our minds, we can build ourselves up with those items in mind, reading the Iconist, and so one of the things that you talk about were blocks, and it's trademarked. Right. Mm-hmm. So I want to know if you can tell us a little bit more on what you mean blocks wise, because I think that goes in line with what you don't know.
Yeah. Well, the first third of the book is about this concept of this term that I've coined called dilution, to really hit home that no matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter where you are, you're experiencing it. Right. The second, part of the book is about this concept, called blocks. Okay. And blocks are the solution to what cause us to stop and pay attention. So one of the first things that we can get people to agree on is that we'll stop and we'll pay attention to a warning label or a road sign. There's billions of them, but we stop and we lock on to a road sign. We lock on to a warning label. When it's a matter of life and death, we use blocks. So what I figured out was that, is there something about the anatomy?
Well, we just lost Jamie Mustard. This is a first, but that's okay. We were getting into blocks, and hopefully he'll be back on here in just a second, and we'll continue the conversation. This is fantastic. This is what live is all about. What questions do you have? And then that way, when Jamie comes back, I'll be able to ask him any of those questions. So basically what we've been talking about today, and I will try to have this conversation, continue the conversation as much as possible for about the next 8 minutes. It looks like Jamie is back. So let's bring Jamie back on and we'll see if there he is.
I don't know where you cut me off there. Sorry about that, buddy.
Hey, no worries.
I followed all the rules. I'm on a landline. I'm on Firefox. I promise I followed all the rules. I don't know where I got cut off, but.
Well, you had just got into talking about blocks, and
okay.
and I had popped it up. You said it was the solution that causes us to stop and pay attention. You just talked about warning signs and things like that.
Okay, yeah. So basically, when it's a matter of life and death, we always use blocks. When it comes to a warning label or a road sign, there's billions of them. They work. We lock onto them, and they guide us to keep us from driving into each other or drinking poison or touching, electric wires. Okay. So the question is there something about a warning label or a road sign that can apply to every other medium, that can apply to your business, that can apply to music, that can apply to art and design? And the answer to that is yes. And it's called blocks. So the first thing you have to understand is that anything in a world overloaded with content where people are being bombarded with messages, while they rely on that messaging, they're also numb to it and they're kind of pushing it out. So the first thing you have to recognize if you want to clear the bottleneck is anything busy in a world overloaded with content gets instantly discarded. So if you can't start communicating about your product, service, message, whatever you're doing, your science, your engineering, your innovation, with something that one can instantly understand in their lizard brain before they have a chance to think, you've lost them. So again, anything that somebody cannot, when they first come across you, they can't instantly understand before they have a chance to think, gets instantly discarded. So what I do is there's a formula to creating these monolithic blocks that cause us to lock and pay attention, whether it's music, whether it's graphic design, whether it's a science innovation, whether it's a small business, whether it's a corporation. I teach you how to create your block. And then a block, once it's repeated, a block is basically the anatomy of what makes something iconic. So typically we think about something being iconic. It takes 50 years, 40 years. It's an accident. We can't really count on it. Well, once you understand the formula of a block, you can create it and then repeat it over and over. And you can make something iconic in a matter of minutes at will and with deliberation rather than hope, luck, chance, or years. So the block is the anatomy of an icon. You craft it, as I teach you in my book. You use it over and over. At the point where it gets taken into the mind of your audience, which just might be somebody sitting across from you, or it could be millions of people. But once it gets taken in the mind of an individual or collective, then it's no longer a block. It's now an icon. So again, a block is the anatomy, an icon of the mind waiting to happen. I hope that is a good explanation.
Yeah, it is, and that's really cool. So I'm trying to type out here because I was going to share on the screen there. I love what you say to describe these things. You make it so. Let me go back. One of the biggest challenges we had here was giving out a clear message. And I think that happens with a ton of people. It's that whole minimalist effect where.
Sure.
And my wife will tell me all the time, she's like, Jamie, you don't need to say this, this, and this. Just say this part of the sentence. And she'll take, a 5-line sentence and chop it into like a half a line. And it's so much better. So simplicity, I think, is key. And when I visited your website, it was laid out very simple, very easy. You could automatically tell exactly who you were. You could automatically see that, hey, the Iconist, I was there. That everything is laid out so simple. The words are nice and easy to read. The contrast from the words against the background and stuff like that. How do people get?
Yeah, I mean, you have to practice what you preach, right, Jamie?
Yeah.
Right, so yeah, I mean, even in the book, right? The book kind of grabs your attention because there's visual laws. So I had to apply those visual laws to the book. If I was going to be, to make it carry all the way through, I really wanted to, and I was lucky that I had a publisher that let me do that. But the answer to your question is twofold. First of all, we're talking about radical monolithic simplicity, but here's the paradox. If you're a person that works with meaning and that works with craft, you might take years, months, years, weeks, whatever it is, to build something that's really crafted, whether it's a business or an object or a service. Once you've done that, it's very difficult to then step back and go, well, I've created this incredible, robust thing that does 30 things and go, I'm going to lead with this one monolithic thing and repeat it. It's a very difficult thing to do mentally. So how do you choose what that thing is? But I'm arguing that if you don't choose that thing, if you don't pick that one thing, you out of the 30 amazing things you created, you won't get people to look at the other 29. They'll see all 30 and they'll go away. Okay. So there's a formula to it and it's in the book. Okay. And the formula is there's an intersect point between, the best of what you have to offer, the problem you solve, the result you achieve, okay, and the emotional concern of your client, okay? Now, when you find that intersect point, it's going to match up with one of those 30 things that you do. And that's how you choose the one thing to put up forward to create your warning label or your road sign out of. So that's the simple formula. And again, you said at the top of the show that, hey, reach out to me. If you have further questions. I did a show in Australia and I said, hey, anybody can reach out to me and I will talk to you. And I'm still corresponding. These guys in Australia took me up on it. So I've been having regular correspondence with a bunch of entrepreneurs in Australia and I've loved it.
Well, and I, for one, I can't wait to have our next conversation. I just learned so much when, I've been telling everybody about my conversation with Jamie Mustard, author of The Iconist, and it's just been fantastic. So I cannot thank you enough for writing this book, number one, and for sharing your wisdom with so many. I can't recommend enough to go out and get this book.
How much time do we have? Do I have time to tell like a quick story?
As a matter of fact, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Because there's a great story in the book that I think really communicates the concept of this road sign, and it's literally a road sign. And I think it's really appropriate for right now. I think, I just kind of address what you said earlier about, this COVID time. It's really horrible that people are getting sick and that people are dying. So, that is its own experience, right? But I have also heard from countless amounts of people that have called me or that I've talked to that have used this as a time of reflection to improve their lives, to take stock of their businesses, the type of business they want to do, the type of life they want to live. And so hopefully we can glean, something good out of it. It's kind of like when they had the Blitz during World War II in London. For that period, people came together, classism disappeared. There can be things that can redeem us and make us better from experiences like this. That being said, I want to give we're going through this kind of recession, and I want to tell a story of about 100 years ago of something that happened in the middle or the heart of the Great Depression, to show how powerful a block can be. But in 1932, there was a guy. His name was Ted Husted, and he was a guy. He had simple goals. It was the heart of the Great Depression. But this guy, he had graduated pharmacy school, and he'd inherited $3,000, which was a fortune in 1932. Okay. And he had two goals in life. He wanted to raise a family three goals: raise a family, run a pharmacy from his pharmacy school, and attend Catholic mass. So he took his money during the Depression. He moved to a tiny town in South Dakota called Wall, South Dakota, population 327, opened his pharmacy. Okay. And he quickly realized that the town was dead, busted, broke. And that nobody was coming into the pharmacy. He was in the middle of the Depression, and that his life was basically being shattered before his eyes. But he had one thing going for him. There was a road that went by the town, US Route 16A. And one day his wife came to him, in the heart of his anxiety and, just worry, and said, "Hey, what do those people that are driving by in their weathered jalopies need more than anything?" And this is before air conditioning is what it is today. And she said, "Cold ice water. So she got this idea to make a giant billboard that would say, "Free ice water Wall drug," and put it out on the interstate. They made this thing. They went out one day. They erected it. By the time they got back to their Wall Drug, they were mobbed. And today, Wall Drug, almost 100 years later, is a national landmark. It's restaurants. It's a complex of business. You could say during the World War II, Allied forces would put their distance from Wall Drug on signs. You could say it was the first viral business in the world, right? So, and that was in the middle of the Depression. So this is the power of coming up with the right block. And I explain again how to do that in my book.
Great example.
Okay. And I hope we're not going on too long, but I wanted to make sure that I gave them something tangible that was applicable to the times we're living in. Okay.
Yeah, I love that. See, it's fantastic. There's so much opportunity. We just need to figure out a way to harness it.
And you can do that with blocks. And I teach you how to do it in my book. And if you can't afford my book, go on my website, theiconist.org, send me an email and I'll help you.
You're the man. Thank you so much. Well, we are getting to the point. So is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap? Like how do people get in touch with you? Or I've been sharing your website here, theiconist.org, but anything else?
Yeah, I mean, my book just came out in October. The Iconist, The Art and Science of Standing Out. You can get it at most bookstores and at all the other places. And there's an audio book, and I read the audio. I mean, I think the last thing I'd like to say, the most important thing I'd like to say is and why there's so much meaning, and I kind of try to help everyone if I can, is and why there's so much meaning connected to my work is when I started beta testing this 15 years ago, my thought was I came across this pattern and I can put this thing out that can help people and I can make a living off of it. And it was just a very transactional concept in my mind. And this is the idea that I'd like to end with. What ended up happening kind of surprised me, whether I was working with like a CEO or a $1 billion company, or whether I was working with a small business that was doing $50,000 to $100,000 a year starting out and everything in between, is when I would go through this process and we would find the block and I would teach them how to present it in this kind of oversized, overlarge Sesame Street way. even before we deployed it, the people would change. That it would be because their business is more of an expression of themselves than I think that I understood what work means for people in Western society. So even before it started working, they would brighten up, and they would know that they were going to get people looking at them, and that ended up being the kind of greatest byproduct that I didn't really think about when I started. That's become a huge part of what I do and a very rewarding part of what I do.
Well, thank you so much. I think this has just been an eye opener. I just can't thank you enough, Jamie, for stopping by. It's been incredible and sharing your wisdom with us.
Well, thank you for having me, because we have the same purpose. We want to keep things moving and stop things from bottlenecking. So you do it with workflow, and I do it with attention. But we're doing the same thing.
I love it. Thank you so much. So hold on one quick second. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. And thank you again, Jamie, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I love this. This is my first. I don't think I've ever done a live stream before. It's my first live stream.
Oh, fantastic. Great.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. We've been talking with Jamie Mustard today. Jamie, again, is an author of The Iconist. Go and get his book today. You can go to theiconist.org to learn more about it. I cannot recommend enough. And you guys know me. If I recommend something, I truly stand behind it and mean it. So please go check out The Iconist. If you want to reach out to Jamie, and you can reach out to him going to Jamie, and he spells his name Jamie, the right way, apparently, at theiconist.org. And he's all over the place. He's on LinkedIn, he's on Twitter, he's on Facebook and Instagram. Again, the book is called The Iconist. And it has what I should do is probably pull up. I'm gonna do something that I haven't done before, but I'm gonna share my screen here, and I'm gonna show you exactly where he's at here, because I want you to see where to go. If I can pull it up here, let me see. Yeah, here we go. And so this is his book here. If you can see it. The Iconist, The Art and Science of Standing Out with Jamie Mustard. Again, I cannot recommend enough to go check out and get his book there. I highly encourage you to do so. Thank you again. My name is Jamie J. I am the CEO and founder of Bottleneck Virtual Assistants, where we really want to help you stop the bottleneck in your business. And that's why I have people like Jamie on. So thank you so much for tuning in, and hope you have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you soon.